Tonight's special space episode of Infected is brought to you by the Black Market Organ Trade, getting organs for rich people for over 50 years. And now, a word from the Black Market Organ Trade celebrity spokesperson, country music legend, Billy Ray Cyrus.
Hello, I'm Billy Ray Cyrus. And hell, let's face it, I ain't no talker. I guess the best way for this old country boy to say what's in his heart is to say it in a song. Black market organs, you done so much for me. Like when my wife had her eyes plucked out by a Muslim and the poor bitch couldn't see. Them doctors told me about lists as long as the day and night. But I said, fuck that, I'm gonna shell out some cash and buy back her sight. Thank God for the black market organs, they'll help you if you're rich. Thank God for the black market organs, they'll help you and your bitch.
And most of all, thank God for not loving them foreign kids, where we harvest them organs. Thank you, God.
The Black Market Organ Trade, keeping rich Americans alive for 50 years and counting.
Infected. Hello and welcome to Infected, the tiny, cold, inhospitable podcast at the far edge of the digital media galaxy. A show that has just been demoted to dwarf status. I'm Internet's Martin Sargent. And I'm joined, as always, by two guys you would never want to be trapped aboard the International Space Station with, Joey and the Gator. How you doing, fellas?
Hey Martin, how you doing, buddy?
I'm all right, Joe?
Yes!
I'd be good on the space station, man. I'd be all right up there.
What possible utility?
I bring my own food. I bring my own Tang, a little flask of Tang and schnapps.
Love the Tang, don't you?
I'd be up there. I drink Tang every goddamn morning.
Well, this, of course, is our special space edition of Infected.
I snort Tang.
You know it's good Tang when you start to feel it dripping down the back of your throat. Anyway, over the next half hour or so, we intend to answer all of the great mysteries of the universe, like we usually do on this show.
Yes!
One of those great mysteries is, of course, did we ever go to the moon, or was it an elaborate hoax? Well, we're going to talk to Bart Sibrel, the filmmaker behind the documentary A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon, who is convinced that we never got anywhere near the moon. And he's got proof. And we'll also show you a video of him being punched out by Buzz Aldrin, who's at least twice his age.
Buzz Aldrin throws a tough little punch. He's a tough son of a bitch.
He really took it hard. I mean, I guess he didn't expect it coming.
You get hit by, what is he, about 67-year-old man, something like that? Rabbit punch in the throat.
He's Viagra strong now.
Boy, I'd like to go 2 or 3 rounds with Buzz Aldrin, man. I'd relish that opportunity. Get in the ring with a tough old fucking nut like that. Ain't nothing better than that, man. Just hand to hand with Buzz Aldrin, just fucking going at it.
Well, you guys, I do. You keep reading about this space tourism thing, you know. People are really jazzed up about this. A study conducted in Japan in 1993 found that 70% of people in that weird little nation anyway would want to go up into space and would spend an average of 3 months' pay for the trip. Now, a study conducted here in America found that 42% of us would want to go on a space cruise and be willing to pay an average of $10,800 to do that.
Well, didn't they actually, sell tickets before? I think Pan Am in, the 70s was actually selling...
Pan Am in the 70s?
Yeah, they were selling, spaceflight tickets. And then
what the hell are you talking about? Pan Am in the 70s?
In the 70s, they were selling...
Pan Am wasn't going up to space in the 70s?
They weren't, but they were pre-selling tickets for when they were
technology. Is that why they went out of business? Can you believe 42% of us want... More people want to go up to space than have a positive opinion of President Bush.
I said it before, man. You can go on up to space without me, man.
That's true, man.
I have no desire to
I don't know what's more retarded, supporting President Bush or wanting to go up into space.
It's cold.
It's
Both
cold?
of them make your head explode. It's cold up there in space, man. You get one false step and you're just floating out there.
Those people, they look miserable. You see those astronauts, they're just kind of waving, and they're floating around and everything, and, food is bad, and I don't even like taking a flight from L.A. to San Francisco. I feel kind of pent up.
I'll take my $10,000. I'll go to Bangkok.
Yeah, get a lot more bang for your buck.
Forget space, man.
Forget $10,000. I mean, Dennis Tito, remember him? The guy who looked shockingly similar to that Hal Bop cult leader dude, remember? He paid $20 million to go up on the Russian Soyuz rocket. This was a few years ago.
Dennis Tito's a weird little
He
man.
is strange. By the way, do not call Dennis Tito a space tourist. He hates that. He demands people call him, quote, an independent researcher. That's true.
Either that or weird little man.
Yeah, I call him a kook. But we should be careful about what we call him because he lives like right around here. That's true. I mean, obviously not in this slum, but like close, near here. Probably a little closer to the ocean. But
He jogs in the morning with that little space helmet on. He's got those little heart monitor things stuck to his chest like that. I seen him. He carries a big like axe handle and he runs around the neighborhood and just focused on the horizon.
I wish he would run by here, by my house in the morning when I'm going out to get the newspaper signed because I would like to ask him a question. I would like to ask him, Dennis Tito, you were up there for like a little over 7 days. Did you just not crap? Did you like hold it the whole time? I mean, did you manage to do that? Because that's got to be really messy in zero gravity. Because you see the things that are floating around up there. I mean, you're doing some experiment or something like that. You're like trying to concentrate, some Russian dude, and all of a sudden like a Tito turd floats right into the side of your head. It could happen.
I'm just thinking of it like those Play-Doh fun factories where, you squeeze down on
That's-
and then it curls
Joe,
up and then hits you right
That's the
back in
reality
side.
of the situation, man.
Dennis Tito doesn't move his bowels.
But what would you do if, let's say, so you're up there and a turd does get loose? Do you tell your shipmates, or do you hope that nobody notices? Like if somebody sees this errant
Nice
turd
one,
floating
right
around,
ahead.
do you own up to it, or is it like when you fart in an elevator or something? You just like be quiet. Wasn't me.
If you fart in an elevator, this is what happens every time you ever fart in an elevator. The next stop when the doors open, the hottest chick that you've ever seen will get in there with you. And if you ever want to see a hot chick, just go fart in the elevator. It's like clockwork, man. You hold it for 10 floors and nothing, and then you fart one time, and the hottest chick you've ever seen comes right in.
Fucking Dow of Gator.
But I think
When
going
does
back to
Gator
the
ever have occasion to get into an elevator?
I used
I'm
to-
trying to picture any large building except the courthouse.
I used to
you
be.
would ever need to go into.
I think if you float one in the space station, the correct protocol is to go ahead and shout it out, let everybody know.
Incoming.
It ain't cool to keep it quiet.
Rocket loose! Rocket loose!
That could mess up those very sensitive instruments, I suppose.
Like a little South Park poozle who's like, "Hi."
When Alan Shepard was on the launch pad waiting to become the first American to go into space, this was back in 1961, there were some glitches that they had with the launch process, and he's just laying there on the launch pad for like 5 hours. And there's a million TV cameras just pointed at him. Right. And he's there for 5 hours, and 5 hours, he's got to piss. But if he gets up, he knows it's going to be delayed even more. And he's got all these cameras on him and everything, so he just pissed himself. Just laying right there on the launch pad. Right. And he wasn't wearing a diaper or anything like that because this was only supposed to be a 15-minute go up into space and come straight back down again mission. So basically the piss coated the inside of his spacesuit. So what we have here is the first American in space had pissy pants, which does that kind of detract from the glory?
It takes a real hero to piss himself and then to tell everyone that he pissed himself.
You know what? He didn't tell anyone, but he had heart monitors on, and they could tell that something was going on, and it was the NASA guys who were monitoring his bio signs knew that he pissed himself. That's how that came out.
See, I thought he was proud of it and copped to it. I didn't know that it was a NASA.
I believe this was.
They all just laughed at him. I did the same thing though the other day, laying out by the pool by the Best Western.
Yeah, I've done that sitting at a bar stool.
I was laying in the deck chair there, and I didn't feel like getting up. I was wearing I wasn't wearing a spacesuit, and I was wearing a kimono robe.
You didn't even bother to get in the pool.
I was wearing a kimono robe with nothing underneath it. No, I didn't get in the pool. I just laid there.
Yeah, I've done that sitting on a bar stool, where on the opposite end of the bar.
I've seen you do that.
The bathroom is way over there. I'm drunk. I don't care. I already smell like bourbon. Had a little piss to it. I'm wearing dark pants. Whatever. Nowadays, though, the astronauts, they crap in a $23.4 million toilet. That's how much it cost. So basically, Dennis Tito's trip into space that he paid $20 million for almost paid for the toilet.
It's a wet, dry vacuum cleaner. Why does that cost $23,000?
Joey, this is an amazing toilet. Amazing. You sit in it, and this bar comes down, kind of like when you get on a roller coaster. That bar comes down? And there's also Velcro that holds your ass to this thing. There's a 10-centimeter hole there, and it makes a seal with your ass, and the crap gets sucked down with an airflow system, a little bit like on a plane. It goes whoosh, whoosh, and then once it gets down there, it goes into the special holding bag, and it gets freeze-dried. Damn. It gets freeze-dried. And then it's all brought – they don't jettison it. They jettison pee. And some astronauts have said there's nothing more beautiful than a urine dump because it goes out into space. But they bring the crap back. And there is some guy at NASA, this is his job. You know, imagine getting all that education. Like, I'm going to be a rocket scientist, and that's your job at NASA, to, like, analyze fucking Dennis Tito's crap.
I think they got a toilet like that over at the handicap stall in the Applebee's out there by the Mid-City Mall. Because I got on that fucker and I couldn't get off. I got all latched in there with Velcro or something like that. I had to call for help. No goddamn woman at the bar had to come in there and pry me off that thing. It was the most embarrassing day of my life. I was wearing my kimono robe.
We were wondering where you went. You barely even touched your awesome blossom. You never even ate one of your riblets.
I was in there for 6 hours before I started hollering.
Hey! Oh, they'll help you out down at the Applebee's, though. It's a real neighborhood bar and grill.
They gave me a free drink after that.
Anyway, you know, this is our space edition.
We're family.
They're launching off on our space edition, Infected Army. And Gator's going to suck out some of Joey's danglers with a wet dry vac right now. So when we come back, what we're going to do, we're going to talk to Bart Siebel to find out why he thinks we never went to the moon. It's all a hoax.
Joey, get over here, boy.
Stay tuned after this word from our sponsor.
Hold still.
Not like this. Not like this.
Tonight's special space episode of Infected is brought to you by the Black Market Organ Trade. Getting organs for rich people for over 50 years. Hello, I'm Dr. Vicksburg Knight, and I'm the president of the American Black Market Organ Trade Association. We are so proud of the service we've been providing rich Americans for over 50 years and the heartwarming stories that come from our continuing efforts.
Daddy, how did your eyes change colors?
Well, boy, one day while Daddy was working in the oil business, his eyes were stolen by some bad men in Tunisia.
What's Tunisia?
That's not important, boy. What is important is that with the help of the black market organ trade, Daddy was able to buy new eyes that were even younger and better than those tired old eyes that he had before, and have them put in his head by some of the best doctors money can buy.
Where did those eyes come from?
Don't worry about that, boy. Just know that Jesus takes care of his own. And that, above all, Jesus takes care of those who have the means to take care of themselves.
Okay.
Now, please, don't talk for a little while, boy. Daddy wants to listen to the religious channel on the radio.
Okay.
The Black Market Organ Trade, keeping rich Americans alive for 50 years and counting.
Infected.
Welcome back to this special Infected Space Edition. Overwhelmingly, world opinion is that Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin walked on the surface of the moon on July 20th, 1969, while Michael Collins orbited above. Most people, in fact, consider the moon landing one of the greatest, if not the greatest, scientific achievements in the history of mankind. But not Bart Siebel, an award-winning filmmaker and television producer whose documentary, A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon, says the original moon landing and the subsequent Apollo missions were all faked. Hey, Bart!
Hey, Martin.
So, we never went, huh?
Well, I'm afraid so. You know, I wish it were true. I grew up as the biggest fan of the space program, and as a 14-year-old, had a whole bedroom wall covered with pictures of the moon landing.
You're kidding. So at what point, when you were 14, you were really into this thing, as every 14-year-old was at the time? Very exciting. When did you realize that this thing was faked?
Well, I saw a guy on TV who worked for NASA who said they didn't go. 10 years later, I was actually editing. I became a filmmaker at 24 and was editing a film for the guy who had done the show I saw as a kid. And he's like, well, contact this old guy. And I contacted him. He said they didn't go. He pointed out that there were several inconsistencies in the pictures, and you can see some of these at moonmovie.com.
Yeah, we're looking at some of these pictures right now.
The shadows on the moon should always run parallel with one another. According to NASA, it's 20 times brighter than a desert on Earth with no atmosphere. So there's no flash photography, there's no stage lighting. There's only the sun. And because it's 92 million miles away and a million times bigger than the Earth, all shadows are run parallel with one another. In a few of the pictures, and you can see these at moonmovie.com, they intersect sometimes at as much as 90 degrees. Now, I'm a filmmaker. My job is to make fake scenes look real, and I'm telling you, that is not sunlight. That is an artificial light. And then there's other circumstantial evidence, like the fact that 2 of the 3 astronauts never give interviews. If you ask them for interviews, 2 of the 3 on the first mission never give interviews.
First of all, who was this guy that you referenced that first turned you on to the fact that this was all faked?
His name was Bill Casing. He was a technical writer, and he worked for the space program from about 1963 to 1968. And he found an interdepartmental memo that said the odds of reaching the moon were 1 out of 10,000. Now, your listeners have to understand that the space shuttle only goes as high above the Earth as Florida is wide. The space shuttle goes 200 miles above the Earth, and they've killed 14 people so far. And we're to believe that 40 years ago, practically, with less computing power than in my Walmart watch, they went 100,000% farther than the space shuttle and never killed anybody.
Yeah, you buy your stuff at Walmart, like watches. But wait, if that's the case, Bart, why is it that more than 90% of Americans rank the moon landing hoax, this idea that you have here, somewhere between the JFK conspiracy and Elvis still being alive and Bigfoot? I mean, and what about like the close to 100% of scientists that believe we actually went to the moon? How come they all believe this?
Science, by the way, is a religion. I mean, science killed the father of our country. George Washington was murdered through negligent homicide when the science of the day said bleed the virus out of the guy, and they killed him. You know, just because scientists believe it, they're predisposed to believe in it. They want to believe it. They're sucking off the same teat as all the NASA people are.
So none of these scientists have investigated this stuff? I mean, I'm sure many of them have. I mean, like Phil Plait over at badastronomy.com, he goes through every single point that you and others make with the moon hoax thing and points out why he thinks it's not true. I mean, are these guys just part of the conspiracy, or are they stupid? Are they ignorant? What's the deal?
Well, all I have to say about that, Martin, is if we didn't go to the moon, then anyone who says otherwise is an idiot. So why are there thousands of hours of construction of so many websites to defend the so obvious moon landings? For a bunch of morons.
Well, I mean, there's also thousands of websites that say that there's Bigfoot and Loch Ness Monster. I mean, that's sort of the nature of the internet.
All I can say is go to moonmovie.com, and you can see the classified footage, which we uncovered, that you yourself saw.
Yes.
That shows the crew of Apollo 11 faking a shot of being halfway to the moon.
Now, tell us about this, because you went to the National Archives, was it, and uncovered a tape that was mismarked, right?
They mislabeled the tape. What was on the label on the tape were two different things. They made a clerical error. And a classified tape that should have been, destroyed accidentally got released. I mean, it says at the beginning of the tape, do not show to the public. And it's the only unedited tape out of all of NASA archives. Everything is pre-edited except this tape. And they're doing one shot of the mission. Imagine if your listeners can pick out, or you can show it. This is an iPod video, right? You see the little moon, little Earth.
We're looking at it right now, so talk us through what we should be realizing by looking at this.
They're saying that this is the Earth in space. Well, actually, they're in Earth orbit, and this is a circular window of the spacecraft in Earth orbit, and you're seeing a section of the Earth outside of the circular window. You can even see an outtake when an astronaut's arm moves in front of the window. You can see the hair on the guy's arm. So if this is really the Earth, then that's the arm of God, or they're faking a shot. Now, what this means is, that we have concrete evidence that Apollo 11 is faking a shot of being halfway to the moon. So if they really went to the moon, why would they be faking any of it? And if they're faking being halfway, it's because they couldn't even go halfway. I mean, no country has said to have left Earth orbit since 1972. Lindy flew across the Atlantic in 1928. Do you think it'd be 50 years before someone flew across the Atlantic again? And they're saying it's going to be 50 years before we can return to the moon.
This is America. We can do anything. We put our minds to it, Bart.
Well, if it was so easy to play golf and drive around on the moon nearly 40 years ago, we'd have bases on the moon by now.
Yeah, that's true. Hey, you showed that video that you were just describing that we just saw to Buzz Aldrin, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
And what was his reaction?
Well, it's very interesting, and you can see a clip of this in the film Astronauts Gone Wild, and on the website, moonmovie.com, click on video sample 2, and you'll see him being confronted with this evidence. And he said to me, this makes you a real famous person. He wants to propel himself like this his career. Well, how can I propel myself famously if I'm wrong?
Right.
He insinuated very directly that we were right. I asked Neil Armstrong simply to swear on the Bible that he walked on the moon, offered him $5,000 cash to give to his favorite charity or to go to Hawaii on me, and he refused to do it, started shaking like a leaf.
And in your Astronauts Gone Wild, I mean, that's sort of the point of the tape, right? You go to all the astronauts who purportedly walked on the moon with a Bible and tried to get them to swear on that Bible that they walked on the surface of the moon, and most of them either ran away from you or yelled at you. In the case of Buzz Aldrin, he actually took a swing at you and knocked you out, did he not?
Well, he hit me in the jaw, and
with his left hand, and he's right-handed. He's an old man.
No, I think it was with his right hand. You may have seen a reverse image of it, but I thought it was with his right hand that he did it. And it was pretty quick. I didn't see it coming. It took me back a couple of feet. It's no big deal. The fact is the guy didn't walk on the moon. If I walked on the moon and someone asked me to swear on a Bible, I think I would find that hysterical. I'd say, sure, I'll swear on the Bible. But it was like I walked up to him in front of his wife and said, how's your mistress doing?
Well, from his perspective, he may have been thinking, and all these guys, I risked my life in the advancement of science for this country, and now this guy is saying that I didn't actually do this thing. I mean, you could understand that they might take serious offense at something like that.
Well, no. I always look at it what I would do. I would find it completely hysterical. Mm-hmm. If I walked on the moon and some conspiracy nut thought otherwise, I would just find that hysterical. But they get angry, like I'm pulling a skeleton out of the closet. We even have a sample of their one and only press conference at moonmovie.com. Click on video sample 1 of the press conference, and you look at them at an hour and a half, they look like they're at a funeral. Mm-hmm. They have scowls on their faces, and they are hard-pressed to pretend that we went to the moon when we did not. And the longer it goes on, the more it becomes obvious that we didn't go to the moon in the first place. I mean, they're saying in order to return to the moon that we have to first have a space station. Well, then how did we get to the moon without a space station the first time? Because actually von Braun in all of his early publications, a half a dozen of them, said in order to go to the moon, you have to have a space station first. And that's not going to be completed until the year 2010.
Right, von Braun, who of course worked to try to get us up to the moon, didn't he say that we would need a spaceship the size of the Empire State Building to get up there?
Well, yes, taller than the Empire State Building, weighing 800,000 tons. The one they used to allegedly go to the moon weighed no more than 6,500 tons. Now, that's a difference of 30,000%.
What about that one that they shot up by the European Space Agency just very, very recently that crashed into the moon? Was that faked?
No, I think it was the real deal. I talked to the director of the space agency, for 45 minutes and sent him a copy of a funny thing happened on the way to the moon. And he saw the footage, and he says it looks very interesting. That's all he would go on the record for. Mm-hmm. I mean, he knew that this footage, and that it proved that they never left Earth orbit. And so I asked him, well, does your modern technology allow close-up pictures of the moon's surface to potentially photograph the alleged landing sites? Now, if there's nothing there, if there's no bottom of the lunar module and no flag and no whatever, then we know that they didn't go to the moon. And they said, well, our cameras don't have that capability.
Wow. Now, recently, NASA announced that it had officially lost all the original footage of the moon landing. And if I got the number right, that's 2,614 boxes of footage containing 5 reels of tape each. You think that that's part of this conspiracy?
Well, the fact is it was discovered about 4 weeks ago that the images that were television transmissions, which is what convinced the mass that we were on the moon.
I watched that myself.
There are
back
versions of it that are 4 times the resolution than has ever before been seen by human eye.
Right.
What people saw in the air was actually 4th generation. It came allegedly from the moon. Then it was received in Australia. Then it was transmitted to NASA. And networks weren't allowed to take a live feed. Then it was projected with projection TV quality of 38 years ago. And then it was filmed again by a TV camera of that era, and then aired. So it's 4th generation. There was discovery that there are these original reels, 2-inch videotape, actually a form of digital video called slow scan television. And when someone asked for them to be copied, they suddenly vanished. Now we're talking.
Well, one guy, though, just recently came out and he said that in 1979, this was actually the guy who was the producer for the video for Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon. He requested this tape, and he got it. He had to pay them something like $180 at the time. And he just found this in his garage or somewhere. So why would they have given that footage to him back in 1979 if this was real?
Yeah, that's the fourth generation footage. That's the same footage that I have.
I see.
You see, the footage that they're talking about is 4 times the resolution that he has or I have. I have the same stuff that this guy has.
So 4 times the resolution, we might be able to see if we could actually find these tapes that there was some funny business going on. That's the idea here.
You have to understand that this is a hermetically sealed building called the National Archives. Mm-hmm. It's where they keep the Declaration of Independence. 1,000 pounds, a ton of videotapes. What we're talking about, listeners, is that every single videotape from every single moon mission has vanished from the National Archives as of 3 weeks ago.
So that would have taken a hell of a lot of manpower, in your estimation, to move all that stuff out of the National Archives.
About 12 people with carts.
So there's 12 people that know that this is going on, not to mention the hundreds, thousands of people who must have somehow been in on the conspiracy, if in fact a conspiracy did exist. Why? I mean, how is it that more people haven't come out then and said this is, we didn't go to the moon? I mean, at this point,
people are coming out, and that's why we're talking about it at this hour. There can only be 2 conclusions from them misplacing these tapes. Either one, they did it because they are incompetent. Uh-huh. Now, if the government is so incompetent that it misplaces the Declaration of Independence or misplaces the only record of being on the moon, then they couldn't possibly be competent enough to go to the moon in the first place.
Well, I think the Bush administration is trying to rewrite the Constitution.
Well, the other option is that they were deliberately, misplaced. And why would they be? Because they revealed the fake backdrops is why. And that's why what we saw was 4th generation, and these are 1st generation. That's why they don't want them to be seen.
Bart, what kind of punch does Buzz Aldrin throw, man? Does he hit?
I'd say it's pretty good there, Gator. I mean, he's in pretty good shape. They were all the right stuff guys, and they're pretty quick, didn't see it coming. And, let me just go on the record and say I think it was my fault. I think I provoked him.
A little bit.
I called him a liar, a thief, and a coward. I didn't intend to. I didn't wake up that morning and say, I can't wait to call him a liar. I think the heat just got turned up, and it was one of those things. And I think I provoked him. I think it was my fault. I shouldn't have said that. And so it's no big deal.
Well, it's obviously a very passionate issue for you. People get passionate about it. Bart, we gotta start running. But Gator, what do you think of all this? I mean, you were around. I mean, you're about Bart's age, I think. You saw the original moon landing, right? I mean, what do you think of all this?
Well, I remember watching it, man. It was one of the craziest things I ever saw. I was just a little kid at the time, but man, I was totally into it. I thought it was real, but I just if what you're saying is true, man, it breaks my heart. I don't know. I mean, I think maybe after Buzz Aldrin threw a punch at you, should have done a leg sweep on him or something like that. Try to knock that old man down if he's lying like that.
Well, you saw the Linder shot footage. What did you think?
Well, I thought it was real, man. I never thought anything other than that. But I mean, I've heard people talk like that. But where would they have shot that footage though if it ain't real?
They shot it from Earth orbit, but they claim they were halfway to the moon. Earth orbit's about 200 miles up. So this footage that they were faking, they did from 200 miles up, and they made it look like they were halfway.
And what about the rest of the footage of them actually supposedly walking on the moon? Was that done in?
Yeah, obviously that was shot on Earth because they didn't go to the moon.
Do you know where on Earth though? I've heard Utah desert. I've heard Area 51. Does anyone really know?
It was done at an Air Force base somewhere in the continental United States. That's for sure. Pretty good guess.
What's that?
All those guys are sworn to secrecy already. And because NASA didn't know, I mean, the guy made the glove, the door, the boot, they really thought they were going to the moon, and they were on the rocket. They went up, and that's no small accomplishment.
Yeah, well, the whole thing, if it's true, is a goddamn shame, Bart. And we thank you for being a real patriot and trying to spread the word about this, man.
Well, yeah, I think we have a great country. It has a lot of pluses that other countries don't have. One mistake that the government made, and I think they need to own up to it. I think it would be healthy for the government to cut this scab off and to pop the boil and to get this messiness out of the way.
Well, that and a lot of other things, right? That and a lot of other things, increasingly so. Well, Bart, hey, man, it was real great to talk to you again. Always a pleasure.
No problem, Martin.
So what you guys got to do, you got to check out the footage that Bart has got up on his website, moonmovie.com. But don't just look at it in those tiny little boxes there. If you really want to get into this, you got to buy the videos that he sells up there. He's got a funny thing happened on the way to the moon and Astronauts Gone Wild, which is one of the most wild videos I've ever seen. You saw a few clips of it here on the show, but you really got to see the whole thing. Bart, thanks very much again, man. You take care. Keep looking up to the sky.
You too, Gator Martin.
All right. Take it easy, my fella. You think he's right, Gator?
No.
You don't? I mean, the evidence is pretty compelling. You watch those videos. And Joey?
No, I did not agree with him.
I don't know, guys.
What?
I don't know. He might have something there. You know, I know that all the other scientists don't believe him, but I'm not a scientist. I buy into these things.
I'm not a scientist.
Ghosts, Bigfoot, that's all leprechauns. I'm into
Man, I
it.
see leprechauns all the time. I don't know, man. I saw that footage when they went up on the moon, man. That was pretty powerful stuff.
You saw the footage that he showed too, though. That wasn't powerful stuff?
It looked pretty real to me. That's all I can say.
All right. You know, there's other conspiracy theorists out there.
But who knows, man? You never know. You
never know. I mean,
They did have
can
that
we
one.
trust the government? That's the key issue here.
They did have
we
that.
know that they've lied to us about a lot of stuff.
I tell you what, you can't trust the government because they ain't give me my disability check in about
There you
6
go.
months.
Yeah, they're the reason I don't put my organ donor thing on there. I don't trust the ambulance workers.
That little motherfucker George Bush he's about to piss everybody off real bad. If he hadn't
About
already.
to?
Well, I tell you what, we got some slow people down there, but they're catching on.
We got a fucking civil war coming. It's gonna be fun.
I'm gonna have a civil war.
We might have to move to the moon pretty soon. I hope we
That's
can
what
get
Stephen
there.
Hawking says.
I know.
If we don't move to the moon,
Hey, he's a real sharp guy.
yeah, he
Yes, he
is.
is. This is not the only conspiracy theory. William L. Bryan II, he says that we really did go to the moon, but when we got there, we covered up what we found because there were alien artifacts up there.
Transformers, motherfucker.
No, I don't know about that, but there's also a whole fleet of UFOs watching the astronauts every step, which also seems plausible to me.
Well, I don't know if you gotta believe in God. You gotta believe in UFOs too.
Do you believe in UFOs, Joey?
Yes, I do.
Have you ever been abducted, Joey?
My mother used to drill it into my head that I was because I get sleep paralysis a lot. So apparently the two go hand in hand. And when I told her about my first case of sleep paralysis, she said, "Oh, you just got abducted like I did." And then she showed me like the weird little silicone implant that she has on her arm. It's my mother's nuts.
So this is like a little bedtime story she used to tell little Joey?
Yeah.
Yeah, Joey, you're going to be abducted tonight,
Yeah.
just like I was.
Don't worry about it. They bring you love.
Look at this little piece of shrapnel I got.
That's a happy little fun time story.
Yeah, that's great, Joe.
Didn't sleep for a week. Oh well, que sera, sera.
How do you know that was actually an alien abducting you, not like your dad just waking you up to get you to go out and light some fires or something?
Oh, my mother's apeshit insane. She used to talk about fucking like how my father walked through a wall one night when she, took her first Vicodin. There's good times at the old Rabier house.
It wasn't the Vicodin.
Your mom got any more of them?
That had nothing to do with it. Your dad actually walked through the wall.
Yeah.
Makes perfect sense.
I think your dad might be an alien. I met that man. He's
Probably an illegal alien. Who knows?
You got that look in his eyes.
Anyway, I've got to go feed the Zeta Reticulum I've got locked in my shed. We're going to be right back with more Mysteries of Space Explained.
Tonight's special space episode of Infected is brought to you by the Black Market Organ Trade, getting organs for rich people for over 50 years. And now, a word from the Black Market Organ Trade celebrity spokesperson, country music legend, Billy Ray Cyrus.
Hi there, I'm Billy Ray Cyrus. Most of you know me as a country music superstar, but I'm also the celebrity spokesperson for Black Market Organs. Let's face it, folks, I'm not a talker, so I'm going to stick to what I do best, and that's singing my country ass off. 3, 2. Have you forgotten what they did to us on September 11? Have you forgotten the fire and the dust? Have you forgotten the pain in our eyes as we watch those towers go and bust? Black market organs, when the chips are down, you gotta sink or swim. If you disagree with this ditty, then the terrorists win. support black market organs and Jesus.
Black market organs, keeping rich Americans alive for 50 years and counting.
Infected.
And welcome back to Infect. You know, my Zeta Reticulin bit me. Ungrateful little bastard.
I hate it when that
kidnap
happens.
an alien, you think you get ET, and you end up with a snippy little bitch.
You get a goddamn xenomorph instead.
Jesus.
You need to take the riding crop to him again.
Hey, it's time for tonight's first tech high-tech news. Well, this is old news by now, but this is our space show, so we should mention it. Pluto has been bitch-slapped right out of the solar system. No! Yep. A bunch of astronomers met up in Prague and said it doesn't qualify for planetary status and has been demoted to a dwarf.
Well, guess what? Prague doesn't qualify as a goddamn city.
I know what Pluto's going through right now. I've been cut from enough sports teams, fired from enough jobs, dumped by enough girls.
Pluto's like that last little dude sitting on the bench.
It is, seriously, man, I can feel his pain. But to have a bunch of space scientists, dorks, diss you like that has really got to sting.
So,
they
what is
blow hot
Pluto?
and cold for Pluto.
It's a dwarf. It's a dwarf planet now, Joe.
Wait, but that's still a planet?
It's different. It's not a planet. There's only 8 planets. This is just typical of the world we live in. Yeah, so Pluto was way out on the edge there. It moved pretty slow. Could maybe be a little retarded. That planet had enough problems it had to contend with, and then these space scientists, bully fuckers, go and kick Pluto square in the ass like that. It's not right, man.
They just had to flick it a little bit. It said.
Seriously, I'd like to see them try to treat Jupiter like that. They'd get their asses kicked and their glasses broken. The world and the universe, it ain't fair, Gator. It's a damn shame.
I think I hear Pluto out in the backyard getting a Grundy.
I'm
He's
upset
squealing.
now.
They took Pluto and taped his butt cheeks together with some duct tape and hung him up from the fucking...
And put a pickle in the middle.
Put a pickle in the middle. Is that what used to happen to you, Joe?
Joe, you speak like you know what's going on.
That was...
I think I said too much.
You did too. People
Joe,
locker him, he
how
said,
long they lock you in the star quarterback's locker?
I don't want to talk about it.
Put a gherkin up Joey's little ass. Right in between the danglers.
Moving on.
You know, at least when they taped Joey's ass cheek shut, when he finally ripped the tape off, at least he takes some of the danglers off. You got to imagine.
They ran Joey up the flagpole by his jock strap with the pickle up his ass.
Start calling Joey Pluto from now on. A tiny, icy, little, cold little thing slowly revolving around there that nobody even cares about.
Dead to me.
Joey's like a little BB in
Oh, you fuckers are dead to me. I'm going to go Planet X on their ass.
Oh, boy.
Put a pickle up his ass.
Put a pickle in his ass in the
Like,
locker.
there they put a pickle in. Like, what? They did
What
what?
kind of pickle was it? A dill pickle? Gherkin? One of them sweet bread and butter pickles?
Moving on. Pluto, planet or not. Points, counterpoints, go.
We don't have time. That's all the time we've got for this special edition of...
Well, do we have time for a story that doesn't involve a pickle up my fucking ass?
Tell us a fucking...
We don't have time for a story.
No, you tell us.
I'm just cursing away now.
I told a story.
All right, it is...
There's a difference, Joe. You let one slip. You never tell us shit. You're the most guarded little motherfucker sitting over there.
Because I'm a big space fan, I will tell you a story about space.
Yes!
This is the story of Scott, the NASA scientist. Once upon a time, there was a NASA scientist named Scott. All of his life, Scott wanted to be a scientist at NASA. As a boy, he would build toy rockets by day and by night, not even be able to sleep as he stared up at the solar system painted on his ceiling. He studied hard and never had time for sports or girls or even friends because all he cared about was getting a job at NASA. After Scott received his PhD from Caltech, still a virgin and seriously obese on account of all the lack of activity, he applied and received a job at NASA. He was thrilled. His lifelong dream had come true. But when he showed up for the first day on the job, Scott found out that his duty at NASA would be to analyze the duty of astronauts after it was returned to Earth in freeze-dried bags. Scott had to unthaw the space turds in the microwave and runs all sorts of tests on them. But it didn't take any sensitive scientific instruments to tell Scott that the turds smelled awful, and he often gagged as he went about his work. Then, one day, Scott had to analyze the turds of space tourist Dennis Tito. Small, rabbit-like turds. And amazingly, one of Dennis Tito's turds, one of the smallest and roundest pellets in the stinky batch, started talking to him. Scott! Scott! said the Tito turd. You deserve better than this. You study so hard, and all you do day and night is analyze poopy. You and I, we should start a rebellion with NASA and take control. You know, that turd makes a whole lot of sense, thought Scott. So the next day, Scott came to work with a compound bow and speared one of Dennis Tito's tiny turds onto the tip of 20 arrows and marched into the lunchroom to shoot people up. But as soon as he walked in, everyone turned and looked to see what smelled so bad. Scott had lost the element of surprise, and a jet propulsion engineer stabbed Scott in the eye with a rigatoni-encrusted fork, dropping him to his knees. Scott spent the next 20 years in prison, staring up from his bunk, looking at the picture of the solar system he had painted on the ceiling, with his feces and his tears. The end.
I'm glad that piece of shit actually got a job as the voice actor for, Sylvester the Cat.
I thought maybe that was like a little gherkin pickle.
It could have been. I'm not sure if that's actually how a little rabbit pellet like Dennis Tito turd would sound, but
I think that sounded kind of like a big turd. I thought little Dennis Tito turd sounded like a little pellet. It'd be like, Scott!
How'd that go?
Scott!
How didn't that go?
I don't know.
Scott. Well, that really is all the time we've got for this special space edition of Infected. For Joey and the Gator, this is Martin Sargent reminding you, don't get ripped by the Riptide. We'll see you at the bar, and thank you, Bart Sebro. Go to moonmovie.com to check out his films.
I'm going to Pickle World!
You've been listening to Infected. If you're still listening now, you are infected. You're terribly infected and you might be sick. You probably are contagious and you don't want to go around others. You just want to stay where you are, which undoubtedly is in your basement or your room in the dark, listening, sadly, alone. Perhaps in your underwear. Perhaps you're fat. Perhaps you're not. Perhaps you laugh. Perhaps you don't. I don't know. But I do know you're infected. And that's all I have to say.
And amazingly, one of Dennis Tito's turds, one of the smallest and roundest pellets in the stinky batch, started talking to him. Scott! You study so hard, and all of you do... Scott! Said the... Scott, said the Tito turd. You deserve... Sorry. Scott. So the next day, Scott came to work with a compound bow and Infected is written by Martin Sargent and Jay Speiden, Joseph Claude, Werner von Braun, Rabier on controls. For more, go to sargeworld.com. And join us on MySpace at myspace.com/infectment by Martin Sargent.
I am Joy von Braun Rabier.
I'm Johnny Von Braun. Put a pickle in my ass.
Run this up the flagpoles, you sons of bitches.
Yeah!